This is Chapter 7 of The Wrong 10 Seconds. We're revisiting Charlie now on Saturday as there's an important development in the missing dog case that's gripped Williston. Here's Chapter 7, Charlie, Saturday. Charlie had Saturday morning off. He still got up at dawn to turn Harriet again and let her sleep while he answered an email from Alfie. Alfie's news was always cheerful. His lab work on fuel efficiency, his adventures with his boyfriend around the Great Lakes region. But the message he sent last night had an odd tone, more concerned than usual. "Are you coping all right, Dad? You work so much. Isn't it possible, with Mum's disability payments, for you to do a bit less? I know you like keeping busy. I just wish you could do it somewhere you're more appreciated." Alfie's little sister must have told him about the dog incident. Charlie's face warmed, unrelated to the early morning sun's first foray into the lounge, as he typed assurances for Alfie. He took pride in his work. He enjoyed meeting all the characters who came through the shop. After sending the carefully crafted email, Charlie checked the local newspaper's website, although it seldom had any decent job listings. There she was, taking up a solid fourth of the Citizen's homepage, the dog's owner. They'd posted a picture of her in full pout, holding an empty lead. She must have a spare, since Ginger Nicky took off with her lead. What dramatics! Charlie's stomach contracted as he remembered her shouting at him not to look, as if someone like her could interest him after Harriet. Rage invaded his insides, yet the shame seemed fortified, if anything, by his indignation, as if the two emotions were in an arms race, both stocking up. Dangerous stuff, anger. He'd always tried to stay off it, after seeing it ravage his father and older brother worse than alcohol did. Charlie woke Harriet, his saving grace. He let the sun stream into the house and played her a Cat Stevens CD. She always pretended to sleep when he washed her, and he pretended too. Harriet was beautiful, and they were only in their 50s. Their intimacy should still have pulsed at a more frantic pitch, but this was all they had. Charlie singing softly as he sponged her. He worked the hoist alone. She didn't hide her objections to this. In the beginning, carers, or Lydia, had come morning and night to help, but the traffic exhausted both Charlie and Harriet, and she hadn't liked the hoist much better with two people working it anyway. So sometimes when he wasn't working, Charlie took over, rolling her back and forth to place the sling under her, hooking it up to the monstrous apparatus, using it to pull Harriet into a sitting position, then swing her over to her wheelchair. She groaned and rolled her eyes. It wasn't like the theme park rides she'd loved taking the kids on. She hadn't willingly relinquished control here. "Come on, babe. I won't let anything happen to you," Charlie reminded her. "You used to tease me about finding matching drinks mats for each pint I gave out. I'm hardly going to mismatch these, am I?" He looped the straps over the hoist hooks and lifted her up. After feeding her breakfast, he changed her sheets and started the laundry, washed the dishes, hoovered the whole house, and then scrubbed the kitchen and wet room floors. He parked Harriet by the sunny front room window, and she looked skeptically at him. "I know I just hoovered the other night," Charlie panted, on his creaky knees working Murphy's soap over the floor. "But Carol's coming over tomorrow to plan the summer fair catering, and you can't be too sanitary, you can't be too safe." Harriet sighed before losing herself to a dozy daydream. She'd always said he worried too much about those things. When he was satisfied, they adjourned to their tiny garden, a few squares of patio he'd surrounded with terraced racks of plant pots. By now the sun hit the garden fully. Condensation glittered on the plastic cubicle in the back corner, crowded with tomatoes and peppers. Charlie consulted a stack of cookbooks for summer fair ideas. Leafing through the books meant leafing through their past. Remember those Kentucky tourists who asked for pie at every meal in their fantastic drawls? You mastered the Queen of Puddings for Queen Liz's 80th birthday, didn't you, babe? The doorbell rang as Charlie cleared away lunch. There was no mistaking the authoritative duration of the button press. "Your mum's back. Good thing I tidied the house after all, eh?" Although scrubbed laminate flooring would not impress Charlie's mother-in-law. She would only be satisfied if their kitchen floor were authentic hardwood salvaged from an ancient royal forest. On the other hand, social media had yet to impress Celia either. She would be oblivious to the tragedy of the missing dog. She wouldn't think to blame Charlie for it. With a moan, Harriet leaned her head back and closed her eyes. No, I won't tell her you're asleep, Charlie admonished, kissing her forehead. We'll face her together as we've always done, apart from Harriet's long spell of unconsciousness post-stroke. While Charlie hurried to the door, the bell rang twice more. He grasped the door handle and stopped. It seared his palm. He was clutching it for dear life, trying to stay afloat above the fury suddenly roiling inside him. Strong enough to rip the PVC door off its hinges, and the second he opened his mouth to greet his mother-in-law, the heat would immolate her. Sense of duty and the bell buoyed Charlie, and he threw open the door. Celia, lovely to see you back on this sceptred isle. She entered the house regally, surveying all while passing him her fawn blazer, which smelled of Anne perfume. How's Harriet? Enjoying the sunshine out back. Charlie hung up the jacket and followed her through. I suppose this weather isn't up to the standards you experienced in Greece. His words frothed out giddily as he bobbed in the wake of that mad rage. He clutched the back of Harriet's chair. Celia stepped over the door jamb onto the patio, her nose wrinkled at the metalwork garden chairs with their chipped white paint. It was quite warm. I'd have preferred the hotel a bit less crowded. Children shrieked in the pool all day. Celia folded her arms. Well, Harriet, it's a shame you can't get out for some proper sunshine now, but you were never in a situation to go enjoy it before, either, truth be told. Harriet turned her face away. Nope, Charlie boasted. Too busy working hard, weren't we, Harriet? Brightening the community, feeding weary bodies and souls. Celia eyed the cookery books. Planning another venture? Helping with a charity event. I suppose paid work for your catering would be impossible for you to find at this point. Charlie saw Harriet trying to raise her eyebrows at him. He put his arms around her shoulders. At least we know I can do paid work, right? Some don't bother their whole lives long. Some don't need to, Celia sniffed. You know my family's fortune was made in textile mills, and you'd be spectacularly ignorant to think running those was an easy job. Oh, Harriet and I can quite imagine what your forebears suffered, harangued by hundreds of Bainbridge mill workers who wanted a living wage, and endless reform bills forcing them to comply with basic labour and environmental decency. Harriet hummed in agreement. Celia tapped her boot on the cement. For someone who boasts about his hospitality prowess, you're frightfully slow making a guest a cup of tea. Charlie straightened, releasing Harriet from his embrace. She was making a low growling noise in her throat. Were she still able to move, she'd have swept her mother out the door already. Actually, Celia, I've got a shift this afternoon, and the carer will be here any moment. He showed Celia out, her face thunderous. Next time ring ahead, won't you? The schedules of paid workers are so full. As Charlie donned his navy polo shirt for work, he heard Harriet chortling out the back window. Let's hope she's discharged her duty sufficiently for a while, eh? He went to grasp her hand. Harriet had waged war against her mum for much of her life. During her later Cheltenham Ladies' College days, she used a campaign of drinking and partying, which she ramped up to promiscuity and smoking when she was at university. Marrying an impoverished American socialist and living a thoroughly lower-middle-class life had been the climactic battle move. Now, Celia seemed to visit solely to prove Harriet had lost. You've had a lucky miss, Charlie told Gemma, the carer he called Miss Supernice, when she arrived moments later. Harriet's mum was just visiting. Gracious, Gemma laughed. She greeted Harriet with a kiss on the cheek. What's the plan for recovery then? An afternoon shandy? We'll stay outside until I make tea, and then Haley's coming to help you get into bed. Charlie knew Haley as Miss Hollyoaks. You'll make sure she doesn't leave Harriet languishing in front of some awful soap opera, won't you, Gemma? Harriet groaned at the idea, and Charlie gave her a last kiss goodbye. Of course, Miss Hollyoaks might not even turn up, Charlie thought as he drove to work. She was young and frequently cancelled shifts, not unlike Olivia at Fairford's. But Olivia was in today, wearing her new deputy-style blouse instead of the polo shirt, while Chris showed her the inventory system. Manesh worked the tills solo, looking ravaged. I can help someone on aisle 2, Charlie called. A stooped old man chatted about the rising temperatures while purchasing soup and ale. The curry house owner stocked up on bulk bags of basmati rice, frozen chips and onions. Charlie saw his favourite customers as well, a woman with lots of tattoos and piercings and 2 precocious children. Today the boy was decked out in wellies, swim trunks and a Superman cape. The girl had a matching cape and wellies with her halter-top pink dress. Both sported grass-stained knees. "Where have you adventured today?" Charlie asked. "Up the canal path, didn't we?" The mum shook out her reused carrier bags and packed their things as Charlie checked them through. The girl poked her brother. He nearly fell in. "I would have flown with my cape." Their mother laughed, her long ponytail waving and her nose stud glittering. "Probably good you didn't try, though." Charlie swiped packet after packet of sandwich meats and cheeses. "Tell me, how many alphabet letters did you find in our shop today?" "All of them," the girl boasted, and the boy nodded earnestly, resting his chin on the cold, metal-topped rim of the checkout counter, eyes wide. "Even a Q." Charlie had suggested the alphabet game last year. He and Harriet used it on their kids when Alfie and Lydia were small. While the parents cooked in the pub kitchen, the children scrambled amongst various packages, finding each letter, underfoot but occupied, happy and excited. "Very clever." Charlie counted out the mum's change. "Enjoy your evening." Ben turned up in the evening, while Charlie scanned crisps and sweets for a harried mum who said her twin's birthday party was tomorrow. He looked up as the woman fumbled for her credit card. Ben had called Olivia over to admire her new blouse, brushing it down with his palms. Charlie wished Olivia would tell Ben off, as that horrible blonde girl had shouted at Charlie. Then again, trying to reason with Ben was hard enough for Charlie, surely more intimidating for a girl just out of school, no matter how she pretended to like it. Once the transatlantic had been running for almost 20 years, and Lydia and Alfie had left home, Charlie and Harriet employed some village kids part-time. It never occurred to Charlie to treat the girls the way Ben treated Olivia or Monica. And when Charlie encouraged them to improve, as he did sometimes with Olivia for her timekeeping, he was straightforward, approaching issues just as he would with his own kids, and as he had much earlier tried to mold his little brothers and sisters' habits at home. Unfortunately, he'd also been the sort of business owner who worked his wife to paralysis and immersed himself so thoroughly in his duties that he waited hours to find her. The next customer bought a microwave lasagna for 2, cheap wine, and a bouquet of carnations, a real Romeo. Charlie kept an eye on the manager. Ben stripped the lost dog posters from the automatic door, wadding them into a ball and tossing it at Charlie's till booth. "What's happened?" Horror sickened Charlie. The dog must have gotten knocked down by a car, accidentally poisoned, perhaps tormented by some antisocial maniac. She'd been such a helpless creature, he should have known. "Has the dog been found?" Manesh paused over the groceries for an older couple wearing fun-run t-shirts. They turned, too, to hear Ben's answer. Ben beamed. "Nikki's home safe. A local officer called to tell me personally. If I hadn't put these posters up, I hate to think what would have happened to the poor puppy." "No wonder you're looking as if you just cured cancer." Manesh concealed his sarcasm behind a flourish of courgette on his weighing scales. "Imagine social media having to fend for itself without paper." The customers murmured adoringly, and Olivia squeezed Ben's arm. Charlie shredded Mr. Romeo's unwanted receipt into tiny papers. Where was Nikki, after all? "Some old fellow had her, slightly mad. But fair play, he gave the dog up as soon as someone recognized it. He thought he'd been helping her out." "I'm sure he did." The churning in Charlie's stomach yielded suddenly, but he didn't feel relief at this resolution, only a void. "Could I take a quick break?" Charlie got his phone and sat in the storeroom on a box of cake mixes. No message from Gemma, so Miss Hollyoaks must have turned up to help put Harriet in bed. Charlie rang Lydia. She sounded breathless. "Sorry, I just got in." "Oh, not from work at this hour?" "From a run." "Did you hear?" he asked. "The dog's been found." "I heard," she said after a brief pause. "Someone mentioned it at work." "Same." Charlie was surprised how desolate his voice sounded. He made the necessary adjustments. "Wow, it's good, isn't it? The dog's not exactly going to tell anyone what happened." She gave an exhalation that sounded dazed at best, dismayed at worst. I guess that's true. How's Mum today? Survived a visit from your grandmother, but all right as far as I know. I'm working late, just having a little break. I didn't realise you took breaks, she said. Charlie looked down at his shoes. He'd given them their weekly polish last night, probably the only shop assistant in the history of Fairfords to bother with that sort of thing. Lydia? Yes? Nothing for it. She knew he had something on his mind, so he might as well ask. Remember when you used to do shifts for us at the pub? What was I like as a boss? As a boss? A moment of silent thought. He imagined her stroking her cat in her almost windowless flat. You were my dad. I didn't think of you as a boss. It's hard to judge someone you know quite well, don't you think? That had never stopped Charlie from assessing people. In a loving way, certainly, but... Right. Are you okay, Dad? Of course. Like I said, everything's good now. Talk to you later, Liddy lady. Charlie ended the call and shifted his weight on the box. His knees felt too knackered to get up. And inside he felt, maybe just knackered in his mind as well. It was a powerful emptiness, so bleak he almost wished for the burning anger he'd felt earlier, or even the icy fear to take its place. He'd lost something just now, or perhaps every minute made it clearer that his stupid stunt with the dog couldn't fix the loss he suffered long before.